I want everybody to know that all these questions were prearranged. Actually, I have no idea what
You
you're
have no idea, so, yeah.
So I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Exactly.
Do I need to be politically correct?
Exactly.
I don't, do I?
You can be Jim Taylor.
Uh,
I guess first let's go back to some background. Talk about growing up in Keizer and then transitioning that into serving as both on the Parks Board and then on council in Keizer.
well, yeah, I've lived here all my life, and I was real active in Troop 41 Boy Scouts when I was a kid and all that stuff, and went to Clear Lake Church, and my dad was a Cub Scout, Cub Master in our Scout troop, and he coached our baseball team, junior baseball team and everything, so my dad was always kind of active, and our neighbors, Al Lamer, he was one of the original members of the Keizer Merchants Association, and so between that and the Lions Club and the affiliation with the Lions Club and Boy Scouts, I just saw a lot of people volunteering in activities, so it kind of came natural.
Mm-hmm. And once you became an adult, you started doing a lot of volunteering yourself, right?
Well, it started when my stepdaughter Amanda got into playing softball, and so I got involved with Keizer Little League, and I coached Keizer Little League altogether 14 years, and I was on the board I think 12, and then coached KYBA basketball, and then we coached Terry Williams, who's now the head coach at West Salem, and was at Cortland. He and I coached tournament teams together, and so that got me involved in, through all that, I got on the Parks Board 22 years ago. So, in fact, Lori and I were a couple months apart. I don't know, I think I was on it about 2 months before her. I'm not sure, something like that. So, I was on that 10 years and then ran for city council.
Mm-hmm. So, it was your, kind of the way you were brought up was, as far as wanting to serve your community, you saw that growing up, and is that what kind of planted the seed for you?
Yeah, I mean, all the people that I looked up to, you know, adults, through the Keizer Merchants Association and the Lions Club, and then later when Keizer Rotary was established. I mean, I looked at those people from my parents' generation, and they all volunteered in Keizer. And at that time, of course, the Keizer Fire Department it was largely volunteer, and people were involved in that. And I just kind of saw that growing up, and it just was a natural progression.
Mm-hmm. So you had the 10 years on the Parks Board, and then on the council for 12 years. What was it like serving in those two capacities for a total of 22 years? And that's a lot of meetings and a lot of involvement.
Well, and I'm going to say this later, you know, the most important thing we have in our life is time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're giving up, and that's what you are contributing.
Okay.
And that alone is that's very self-satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it for any other reason. I certainly didn't do it for ego. If you're doing anything for ego, you need to find something else to do. It was something I was concerned about when I first ran for city council. I thought, am I going to think I'm somebody? And turned in, it was exactly the opposite. You know, I was just volunteering my time. A lot of it.
It's kind of building upon that. Since you grew up here and you're involved with like the baseball and the basketball and all these different activities, how concerned were you that you know, some of these people who are your friends that you've known for years or decades, you know, how concerned were you that, whether it be on Parks Board, especially in council, that you might have to make decisions that your friends wouldn't agree with or would be upset by, or how would you be able to, were you concerned you'd be able to put aside your being objective when you have so many friends?
I had one occasion that one of my best friends was very concerned about an issue and disagreed with where council was going on the issue, and disagreed where I was going on the issue, which was with the majority of the council. And that hurt a little bit. And I mean, this is a very, very good friend. Mm-hmm. And I finally said to this person, I would do anything for you, but I serve 35,000 people. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't in good conscience go against what was good for the people to satisfy a few people. And that was difficult. I mean, it wasn't difficult to do it. It was difficult to deal with the situation with a couple of people that I knew very well. And this one person who is, like I say, is one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm. Did your friendship survive that?
Oh, absolutely. Still thinks I was wrong, but the friendship survived fine.
What would you say has been your biggest accomplishment as a counselor?
You know, 12 years, there's been a lot of things. There's been a lot of really big changes. And what we do as city councilors is we take care of the one thing that people hate, and that's change. We manage change. And so that's difficult. But I mean, it all started, I was there right at the beginning of Keizer Station. Mm-hmm. And then Keizer Rapids, and going through all that with Richard Walsh. Mm-hmm. And then the next big deal was building the Civic Center, and I suppose the two things that I was most involved in, well, there were three. One was the Something Special Task Force, which finally has come to where it's can go somewhere now, and that was to build a youth center or a gymnasium type thing for basketball, volleyball, whatever, and that has been put in the master plan for Keizer Rapids. Mm-hmm. Now, that may be a long time before that ever comes to any fruition, but it's in there now. And then some people from Rotary, Mike Gaynor, Bob Zielinski, and some others talked to me, and we talked about a community center. And so when we were making all the decisions on what was going to go into the new City Hall complex, I really pushed hard for the community center. And I think, you know, had a part in that. And then the other thing that, it sounds funny, but Rich Walsh brought up that he wanted to get rid of spending the money to put fluoride in the water. And I at the time I said, Rich, I got more guns, don't go there, and he was adamant. And so we had a long, about a 2-month debate going to City Council and some public hearings, and my side prevailed, and fortunately for the dental health of the people of Keizer, we still have fluoride in our water. Now, some people don't like that. They think it's a communist plot, but it has done wonders. An example would be Portland, which is the largest metropolitan area in the United States that doesn't have fluoride, and they also have the largest per capita number of dentists and tooth decay.
Really?
Yeah. But they, again, here about a year ago, decided not to have fluoride. Okay, whatever, it's your decision. But I grew up here before on well water, and I'm trying to think when the water district started, but we still have well water. And I'm not sure if they have when they started putting the fluoride in. But I grew up And Gib Gilmore, who's a dentist, grew up here, and we didn't have fluoride in the water. And our teeth are a mess. And, you know, I always brushed my teeth and did all that stuff. And the difference between people of my generation and the generations that followed is absolutely, it's astonishing. And tooth decay used to be one of the larger killers in America. People died from that. So it was a major issue, and I was proud of my stance on that. Even though it didn't take a long time. And I suppose the other thing that, well, everyone on council that was involved at the time was the fire department wars. And whether that was a good thing to do or a bad thing, even in retrospect, I'm not sure, but one good thing came of it, and that was Marion County District 1's involvement in the entire city. They've really stepped up and become very visible. And again, I'm not really sure if that was the right thing to bring up or not. We did, and so it was a good debate.
So are there things that you'd hope to accomplish that didn't get accomplished, or are there things that proved elusive during your 12 years that you hope to be able to do?
I guess you know, you might as well shoot for the moon, and I really wish that we could have gotten a youth indoor facility built by now. But I mean, it's strictly it's a financial issue. I mean, those are expensive things, and so I understand why it wasn't, and we didn't really have a place for it like we do now. I can't talk too much about it because still being an elected official and ex parte contact, you know, Area C has been kind of a thorn. Hopefully, yeah, I wish something could have happened before now with that, but it looks like it's going to. I think that's a good deal. Other than that, I'm pretty satisfied that, again, we managed change, and you don't want to do anything too quick, or people are. And Schmall Road finally got done.
Right.
Thank you, ODOT. 2 years later.
Now, speaking of that, you talked about some things you wish had been done. Kind of a different take on that is, are there decisions either you made personally or the council made as a whole that you regret or would do differently looking back in retrospect?
Our decision on Area C. Rich Walsh was the only one who voted against that at the time. And he thought it should be a new text amendment. He's a lawyer, he has a legal mind, and we disagreed with him and didn't do it. In retrospect, he was correct. And if we had done that, that might have moved forward and not been overturned by LUBA. But again, you start getting into technical legal things, and it's a little hard for a lay person to totally understand those things. In retrospect, I wish we would have discussed it more, but he brought it up and nobody really thought that was a good idea. We've been working months on this and didn't want to start over. We thought that what we had decided on was good. And as it turned out, because of a couple words, LUBA overturned our decision because they decided what we meant. And it wasn't what we meant, but so, but it was overturned and that's the way it was. So now it's going, hopefully now it's going to actually come to something.
So you had the 12 years or the 10 years Parks Board, 12 years in council. Did you ever have ambitions for whether it be mayor or county commissioner or anything more?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this at the little get together we're having on the 17th. Absolutely not. I mean, being mayor, Lyndon's talked to me about it, I've had other people talk to me about it too, and I have absolutely no desire to do that. Right? It is a tremendous amount of work. I think I've been a good counselor. I don't know if I'd be a good mayor. If you don't have a passion to do something, I don't think you should do it. And I certainly don't have a passion to do it, and that's the reason I've never been interested.
Mm-hmm.
Lori has done a wonderful job, and I think a lot of that, not only because she's a very, very bright person, she had a true passion for it. And Kathy Clark has the same thing, and she's a very bright person and a passion for it, and I think she'll do a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
She's not Lori, she's Kathy, and that's fine.
Right. And speaking of Kathy taking over as mayor, and we got Brandon coming back in council, and Amy Ripp and Roland Herrera now joined the council here in January. What kind of advice do you give incoming councilors, and not just current incoming councilors, but councilors down the road, based on your experience, 12 years on the dais?
Use your common sense. A lot of times when people testify, it's the antis that testify, which is fine, and their opinion is important, but you have to weigh whether that is the majority. And as you talk to people in the community, you get a pretty good sense of what people are thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky enough in my job that I'm talking to people all the time, and so I get I believe a real good broad sense of how people feel. Mm-hmm. Now that doesn't mean that they're right, and that doesn't mean that maybe you disagree with them. Mm-hmm. We have an advantage on city council of having all the information and having to know all the information. Mm-hmm. And I have found through 12 years on city council, when people come to testify, they don't want information, they want affirmation that they're right. And if you don't agree with them, then you're not listening. And sometimes you just have to, you take all that in consideration, but at the same time, you got to use some common sense and have a feeling for the community of what the community wants and what's best for the community.
Right.
As far as the new counselors, it takes, putting Brandon aside, Brandon served on city council before, and I was very lucky to have him run for my seat. I'm very, very comfortable. Brandon is a really smart guy, hardworking, and says what he thinks and votes how he thinks. Mm-hmm. And there isn't any game playing with Brandon at all. And I hope I've been that way. So the two truly new counselors, Amy and Roland, they're both also very bright, and I hope that they work hard at the things they're passionate for, mm-hmm. and at the same time, every decision you make affects everybody. And you don't want to try and get too narrowed in on things and deal on just your passions, but you have to work with the entire council and the things that come up. Mm-hmm. I hope they can do that, but it takes 2 years to really get into the flow of things, and so I hope they can sit back and take some of that in at least the first 6 months and learn. It doesn't make any difference how smart you are. You kind of get it by osmosis. I mean, there's so much past history, mm-hmm. and you just have to learn all that, and it takes time.
Right.